what made you decide to take on the case? I know you were Bernie supporters. Maybe I'll just let you tell the story of what happened.
I mean, we take on cases the same way we take on, I'm in an interview! Close the door, please. We take on cases the same way we take on all our cases is, you know, people, we see a law being violated, and then there's people who actually would serve as clients, and it's that simple. And it was, for as far as I was concerned, it was just a regular old fraud case, but I guess just a lot of weird things started happening in that case. So
yeah.
You know, I don't, it's kind of helped me gain some insight into, I never considered it to be a political case. I always considered it to be a civil fraud case, but it gave me some insight into our political system because the facts involve a political process, which is voting within the Democratic Party. And, you know, if you take a big picture view of it, it's voting irregularities. It's not like a building full of people died. But even in a situation like this, I just came to the conclusion that things are so much worse than I even imagined.
Yeah.
And you know, in construction, you can try to salvage a building, and sometimes you just can't. You just have to do a gut demo. It's just unsalvageable, and I just don't know if it's unsalvageable. That's what I'm trying to figure out right now.
Right.
Well, you can't be blindly optimistic and stay in a house that's going to collapse on you.
Right.
Right.
Which I think is what most Democrats and even most candidates are doing right now, is they're just pretending that, you know, if they just go out there and work and, you know, for the candidates and vote, that everything's going to turn out fine. And we already have plenty of evidence that shows that's certainly not the case.
It's because people don't want to be homeless, right? So you move out of your house because you're like, oh my God, it's unsalvageable, termites have eaten everything. But if your only other option is to be out on the street and you have no other house, then you can't really blame people for staying in a house that's about to collapse. But on the other hand, it's better to be out on the street than to have the roof on your head.
Right.
So,
yeah,
you know, I've sort of, I've never been, you know how some people, they call themselves political junkies? I've never been a political junkie. I was a very typical, you know, come out every 4 years and just vote for the party candidate type of person. But now I don't even think I'm even going to do that, because it's not even that one vote doesn't matter. I just don't think it matters at all. I don't think our votes are counted. And so I don't really want to engage in exercises in futility. So, you know, maybe some people will think that makes me a very bad American. But
I've heard Tim Canova say that too, you know, after what happened twice with him, like not to vote. So, yeah, I mean, it's your choice. So,
yeah, I mean, if other people want to go out and vote, bully for them.
Right.
Right.
Well, I'm not going to be shamed into doing it.
No. One of the most shocking things to me about the way the whole system works, I mean, this is supposed to be our democracy, but we
don't have a democracy.
No. And it's a mixture. So the DNC is a private organization, yet in the primaries, some of which are closed, they're funded by taxpayers.
Right.
So this private company, basically, that can clearly do whatever it wants and defraud people and get away with it, is tied into our who we can choose for president. I mean, to me, even the fact now that all these candidates have to raise all this money, individual donations, so that the American public can hear them on the debate stage. I mean, that's I don't know, that we should be able to hear them without them raking.
Well, there's nothing to prevent them from doing a live stream and talking about their, so if they want to get on CNN's debate stage and CNN says, you know, you got to get X number of, I mean, that's CNN's business.
And the DNC.
It's not an official government. That's not an official, that's a private invite only debate.
Right.
So,
Right. And it's the DNC. It's the DNC and the media. So as long as you're still playing that game, you're still participating in that game. How is it going to change, right?
Right.
oh, well, nothing's going to change. But I don't even think it's just limited to the DNCs, because people seem shocked that this private company has sort of hijacked a very public sphere, which is elections. But then, you know, you look at things like our healthcare industry, and basically it's been hijacked by private corporations. It involves public health. But you know, and then you look at some of our companies that do military contracts. I don't even know, like Boeing.
Right. Excellent.
I don't even think we know what the hell they're up to. So this, I don't even think it's all that unusual. I have come to the conclusion that the people in this country, and there's a lot of us, we actually have no say in our government. And it is just such a difficult pill for people to swallow, because at the end of the day, if you don't have, you know, what we've been told is the greatest governmental system known to modern man, then what do we have as Americans? And you basically have a big fat nothing. So people are holding on to this for dear life, and if you let it go, it actually becomes very depressing to know that, you know, we all grew up being told about democracy and how our government is unique because it's for the people, by the people, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, propaganda is propaganda, and I think it's all just propaganda. And the conditioning is very profound. It happens when you're very young. So even though people know their reaction is still very biased in favor of the system, because we've been told it's all we got.
I think Caitlin Johnstone wrote an article recently, I think that was her, about the American educational system and how all of that kind of conditioning starts so young, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Like I've shown my daughter an episode of Redacted tonight where Dr. William Pepper comes on and talks about what really happened with Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. And she watched about half of it. She's 14. And then she just looked at me and she said, why do they tell us something completely different in school? And I was like, that's a good question. And then her second question was, do the teachers know? And I said, you know, probably most of them don't.
Well, some of them, even if they know, you know, a lot of times you have to see, like, who is the hand that feeds you. So, I remember reading this horrible story. I think it came out of Texas. So there's two types of judges: state judges, and a lot of times they're elected, and federal judges. And federal judges spring from the U.S. Constitution, Article 3, and they're called Article 3 judges. And the funny thing about federal judges is once they are appointed, they're appointed for life. Supreme Court justices are also Article 3 judges. So if they don't want to leave, they're sitting there. They're like the Pope, right? Okay, like I said. Anyway, so I remember reading about this judge, this federal judge, and basically he was sexually assaulting his bailiff. Was apparently a single mother, and she really needed the job. And she was just getting like regularly assaulted by this douchebag. Anyway, she finally couldn't take it anymore. But the reason she didn't step forward right away was because she really, really, really needed the job. Okay. So when people's livelihoods are at stake, it does color their decision making.
Sure.
And so when you talk about teachers, you know, I'm sure they want to be good teachers, but they certainly don't want to get fired.
Right.
Even if they know, they're not gonna, they're kind of incentivized not to go down certain rabbit holes because it's just going to get them in trouble. So just to give you an example, in Florida, my husband is beside himself about this. The Florida legislature actually had their meeting. Okay, this is the Florida lawmakers at the state level in Tel Aviv. They don't even have it in the United States anymore. I know, right? You're like, what? So they had it in Tel Aviv, and they just passed a law in Florida saying that making it illegal to criticize the country of Israel in schools because it's anti-Semitic. So my husband is so fucking angry about it. First of all, there's a lot going on and a lot to unpack. One is, see, this is just another nail on the coffin. Like, my husband believes it is his, I wouldn't say God-given, but it is his constitutional right to be able to talk about other countries and their policies and be able to freely say whether or not you agree with said policies. And it doesn't make you a racist, doesn't make you, you know, anti-whatever, to criticize a country, right?
Right.
So he feels it very, very, very profoundly, strongly on that gut level. On another level, he's ethnically Jewish. So he's like, Jesus, I can't even fucking criticize Israel. And then there's even more going on. Because, you know, because I listened to him rant. My husband's, Jared's cousin, he's dead now. But his cousin, like 4 times removed on his mother's side, was the first, let me get this straight. He was the first rabbi of the city of Jerusalem in the state of Israel. So you're like, so what does that mean? Well, this first cousin of Jared's did a lot of work when Israel was a small, struggling country to help that country get on its feet. And now he can't fucking criticize the foreign policy of a country his cousin helped create. We're on an interview. It's like 2 minutes. Hold on. So
You have kids too, don't you?
I have 5, and they're 5 and 7.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, and the thing is, like, people are so cowed that nobody's protesting because nobody wants to be labeled an anti-Semite.
Right. And that's how they use, that's what they do.
Yeah.
Well, it's like 9/11. When 9/11 happened, all these weird laws got passed where they can grope your boobies at the airport, and nobody said a peep.
Mm-hmm.
Because you didn't want to be labeled as somebody who was like pro-terrorist.
Right.
You know what I mean? And all these laws about domestic spying and basically, I'm sorry, but the US Constitution says that we have a right to be protected from unreasonable searches and seizures. But people don't seem to really, I personally think the Constitution is dead. There's just so many rights in there that are just non-existent now.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're giving them up on pretext of you know, other reasons for our own safety and stuff like that. And so we're just, as a whole, I think people are just giving them up,
They're just giving it up, but you know, you have to, what did the Beastie Boys say? You have to fight for your right to party, and that's just the right to party. Okay, we're talking about even more fundamental rights, and you got to fight for them, otherwise they're just going to take them away from you. And it's just like taking candy from a baby and they're just they're gone. A lot of these rights are just gone. And I'm certainly no gun nut, but honestly, the only out of the Bill of Rights, the only one that's even actually like alive but on death support is the Second Amendment, and there's a full-on assault on that as well. So we'll see. I mean, honestly, I just don't think that there's enough people who, I don't think there's enough people who can save it.
It's hard to gauge, you know? I mean, I feel like where do you, I don't think the mainstream media is any real gauge of, I mean, certainly there are a lot of people still watching that and following that, but there are a lot of people that are no longer, and they've kind of gone off the
Yeah.
grid, so to speak, with media. So I don't know that we really know. And then everything in social media is so controlled. How can we really get a read of what's really going on? Like, I know you said, so Jared got removed from Twitter, right?
He did. He got banned on Twitter for basically criticizing Kamala Harris. But I criticize Kamala Harris too, because I mean, it's nothing personal, but it's I think running for public office, I mean, you know, I'm allowed to criticize a woman who is running for president because she was some like nasty old grandpa's side piece. I mean, that's how she got her start in politics. Let's just call a spade a spade.
I did not know that. I haven't paid enough attention.
Yeah, it's like some mayor of San Francisco who was like old enough to be her grandpa, who was married, and she basically like slept with him. And he bragged about it. He's like, yeah, I made her.
Wow.
Right. So that's fine. I'm not saying throw her in prison or anything, but you can't reward women like that, because if you do, I don't know if you have daughters, Kelly. Oh, you mentioned a daughter.
Yeah.
Right, so you're basically telling everyone, listen, girls, if you want to get ahead in the society, what you got to do is you got to go out there and suck the right dick.
Yep.
That's how you get ahead. So no, I don't believe that, you know, Kamala Harris. Now, like I said, it's not personal. I'm not wishing her ill, but if she's, and the thing is, if this is a private company, I think his name was Willie something. That's so funny. His name's Willie.
We can't make these things up, you know, Anthony.
Right. So like, if he's running a private company and he's running it like as a total dumpster fire, that's his business. But he was the mayor and he was doling out public positions to her because, you know, she was sleeping with him. There's a word for that. It's called graft. And people don't seem to understand. They're so brainwashed. They're like, Kamala is a woman of color, and so more power to her. And I'm like, how fucking stupid and brainwashed are you?
Yeah. Well, if you're participating in all those old things that, I don't know, need to die out. Well, I want to ask you some about, so if you could maybe, I wrote down some notes from something I just watched, but basically why the judge dismissed the case.
Who the hell knows? I don't know. I stopped trying to guess what goes on in the minds of judges.
So there were 3, is that right? And then one of them just recused herself?
No, that was the appellate court. The order, so it was the first layer is called the trial court. Now this was in federal court. So there's 2 parallel things. There's state courts and federal courts, and each of them has 3 layers. Trial court, appellate court, and supreme, right? But they're 2 kind of separate systems, parallel. We're in federal, right? So we started off in the trial court, and the judge dismissed the case, and it's now up on the 2nd level, which is the 11th Circuit Court of Federal Appeals, and the order hasn't come down yet.
Oh, okay. So something can still happen.
Well, I mean, if you get dismissed and you take it up on appeal, the odds are not good.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Because it's kind of like, it's metastasized, but we'll try our best. So you're like, okay.
Well, one of the things that struck me was that, okay, from this thing that I listened to, the judge did believe that the DNC was biased against Bernie, but basically nothing they could do about it. That even if the DNC charter claims that they're neutral, that that promise of neutrality isn't legally binding.
Yeah.
Correct me if anything I'm saying is not right. And then also that there was no concrete injury sustained by plaintiffs. Was that something, I mean, didn't we have a dollar amount, or what did they need?
Well, I mean, respectfully, we disagree with the trial court. As far as the injury is concerned, you know, generally what injury means is, okay, you're sore, you're upset, but how did you get hurt? So the good example of this is pain and suffering. So like if a hospital screws up and like ends up torturing your poor grandma and she dies there. Let's say your grandma was retired and wasn't working. You know what the value of that malpractice is? It's like really low. It's like zero because your grandmother's not even working. Now,
Right.
that's a legal system. But there used to be a concept called pain and suffering, because if you were her relative or your daughter and you saw her like with horrible, that, you can quantify that. But it's a very difficult thing to quantify, because how do you quantify the horror you feel when a hospital just kind of tosses around your loved one like a sack of potatoes and they die a horrible death or something, right?
Right.
But the loss of money is probably the best example of a concrete injury, because that's the system we live in.
Right.
So if your baby is dead, how do you put a dollar amount on that? It's hard. But if somebody steals $10 from you, why is that so difficult to quantify? It's $10.
Right.
Okay, so the loss of money historically, if you look at the case law, has been the best example of a concrete injury. So we respectfully disagree with the trial court that there was no concrete injury. As far as it not being redressable in court, we disagree with the trial court there as well, because, frankly, it's the DNC. This could like really fuck up elections. But who cares? Fraud is fraud.
Right.
Right.
Who cares who's committing it?
Yeah, I mean, if this was a consumer product,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
Right.
Then,
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I thought of this just
I'm
popped.
doing it. I told you.
Do you need to? If you need to pause for a second.
It's fine. It's fine. This is like every night. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Good.
Okay, so I was gonna say, I thought of like if you had someone like crowdfund to build a product, right?
Yeah.
And people donate to that, and you say, I'm gonna build this thing,
Mhm.
and at the end you go, oh no, actually I'm just gonna build this other thing.
Mhm.
And so that people that donated thought they were getting this, but according to, like, I'm trying to compare this. According to what the judge said, I guess, was that because people didn't specifically base their decision to donate on the promise of neutrality.
Yeah.
Well, of course they did. Why else would they donate? That makes no sense.
Because they wouldn't. So
you wouldn't donate unless there was a promise of neutrality. Otherwise, why give your money? That argument makes.
But it's an assumption. They're putting the blame back on the donors because they made a wrong assumption.
That's ridiculous.
You know how there's these GoFundMes for like homeless people, and
Right.
people donate, and it's like, this guy is homeless and he walks 3 miles. Can we please get him like a car, right? And people are like, oh my God, that's really touching. But every so often you read about like how it's a big scam.
Mm-hmm.
Or the homeless person is real, but the people setting it up like took all his money.
Right.
And they get arrested.
Right. So how is this any different?
Right. Now, the thing is, when you give to a charity and the promises are like really, really vague. Like, for example, like a lot of charities, they say, oh, well, we're like a homeless shelter. But then if you actually go into their financials, a lot, like more than half of their money goes into like salaries and
right. Of course.
So you think, I thought my money was going to go get some, canned food and like beds. Now that's not going to fly in court, because I think it's just like kind of assume that a nonprofit would have expenses. And as long as they don't, now if that nonprofit says 10% of all donations go to administration and nothing more, and it turned out like 80% did, that would be fraud too.
Right.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But in this case, like it says right in their charter that they will run a fair and unbiased.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Yeah.
But this promise of neutrality isn't legally binding. I don't
know. It's a very dark way of looking at things, because it's basically saying, you know what, you voters, you stupid voters, you really thought that our political system, neutral elections. How stupid are you? I mean, I kind of feel like, you know, it's just, it's a very cynical way of looking at it, but maybe it's the accurate way. Maybe this whole lawsuit is just very naive.
Yeah, but if you just took it, if you took it and applied the same ruling to any product, wouldn't, like, just a product being sold, like I said, a GoFundMe to build something, and then that would be straight up fraud, right? I mean, how's it?
You bring up a good point, Kelly, but I will have to say that even in the context of consumer fraud, the laws are getting very, very, very eroded. It's really kind of, I almost have to laugh because I personally feel like our legal system, instead of relying on a body of law, a consistent body of law, they see who appears before them. And it's like, which one do I want to win? And then they build the law against that. So,
wow.
So I don't think, like, you know, you know, for example, free speech is free speech. Either you have free speech or you don't. We don't have free speech in this country, really, when it comes to people talking, but free speech as a concept has been expanded to give corporations enormous rights. Now, I don't want to sound like one of those people who are like, corporations bad. No, but it's really funny because our Supreme Court, our illustrious Supreme Court in Citizens United, I swear to God, you have to laugh at this. They said that when a corporation donates money, or when the act of giving money is speech, you're saying something. Like, I like you, I'm going to give you money. And so that should not be fettered by campaign contribution restrictions. That's why we now have unlimited campaign donations.
Right.
Because giving money is speech. Now, that's so hysterical to me, because when you try to bribe an official,
right,
that's speech too.
Right.
You're saying, oh, I'm going to tell you something with this bag of money, right? That's speech, but we say bribery is bad. So where is this going to go? It's actually kind of crazy. But we don't necessarily live in a country with unfettered, crazy free speech for everyone. It's just for some people.
Right. And now we have social media.
Yeah, because, compare that to Florida, where you can't even criticize, like, the foreign policy of Israel.
Right.
Otherwise, you'll get. How is that free speech?
Definitely not.
See, so no, we don't have a consistent body of laws. It's whatever the ending is, and then they kind of create this sort of laughable structure around it. So
it's almost
I don't know how long a society will last without, like, consistent laws, especially a big country like the United States, where people are so different to begin with, and it's really hard sometimes for two people to find common ground in this country in some ways. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes.
So without consistent laws, I see little hope.
Well, it's almost like, and that's okay. It's almost like, you know, we just, as a society, took our hands off the wheel and didn't watch what was going on for like 30 years. And so all this stuff was like,
well, you know,
organized crime, you know, with the voting systems and all of that.
Yeah, I don't really know, because, you know, Jared has read practically every book on the JFK assassination, and he really didn't think much about JFK since a couple of years ago, but he's consumed every book. So, you know, the JFK assassination was a big deal. It was a big watershed moment because, you know, there's just a lot of evidence that points to our government being culpable in it. But you have to understand, like, you know, and I mentioned, and people were like, yeah, but, you know, you can't let something like that stand.
But we do. But I think,
and I don't really know why.
I think because, I mean,
Like,
Well, I didn't pay that much attention to that till a couple of years ago. So I think there's this, I always call it self-policing, but I think that we as a society, like you said, people don't want to believe that their vote doesn't count. They don't, it's just too much of a difficult pill to swallow. So I think for most people to look at that and go, our own government assassinated him, like that's just too much for most people to.
well, they're stupid because, you know, do you remember that dude in Penn State who was like molesting all those like young
Yeah.
kids? What was his name? Sandusky.
Yes, that's right.
So this is so weird. So he got caught and they interviewed his wife.
Mm.
Okay, so he was doing all this shit in the basement with these kids who were staying there. And this wife, she's like, those kids are bad seeds. They're lying. My husband would never do that.
Oh boy, denial is a very powerful.
Yeah. And I'm like, bitch, this was happening under your roof.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's too many people.
I mean, it's one thing to be like, I knew it was happening. I was okay with it. That's honestly more honest
Mm-hmm.
than be like, oh, they're lying.
No, people
Never
delude
do anything like that. My husband would never. He's such a kind-hearted guy. He was, you know, he was helping these worthless kids, and look how they treat him.
Mm-hmm. It's self-deluding, and it's I think there aren't enough people that will shout out the emperor has no clothes, you know, and I think that's just kind of
the awful. Well, actually, the kind of part of the awfulness is that a lot of people are kind of like the alternate Mrs. Sandusky, which is like, yeah, I kind of know the government took out JFK, but you know, oh well, my stocks went up.
Oh,
Right.
well, yeah.
Right.
If you're still benefiting from the broken system, then I guess, yeah, why criticize it?
Yep.
But so what do you think, so I know you said you don't think there's you don't have a whole lot of hope for a different outcome.
Well, I talk to a lot of people, and I just don't think there's like enough people.
Mm-hmm. So what's the process though, right now? What are the next steps?
And I think for me or for the lawsuit, I've moved on to other lawsuits. There's nothing left for us to do.
Okay.
I've moved on to other cases. I'm working on my other cases, doing the best I can. So, you know, I mean, I have other cases. This isn't my only case.
Right.
And,
do you feel like, I mean, there was a lot of attention on this story, and then it just kind of seemed to fizzle out, I guess, once it was dismissed from the.
oh, people have very short memories.
Yeah.
When I started up the Facebook page, 50,000 people followed it, and then it immediately, like, it's just people move on, you know?
Mm-hmm.
They forget.
Yeah, so that was like right after it was dismissed. Did it just people dropped off, or
I don't know when. They just kind of, they moved on to other things. People don't have memories. They don't remember.
Right.
I don't know why. I think the fluoride.
I think we're just trained that way too. And again, and maybe it's the media, you know, they've done studies how kids that watch a lot of television and all the ads and the quick, you know, that's kind of almost like attention deficit, like, I don't know, causing to the way that we grow up. So maybe we don't have the attention span to stay on something, but this particular story to me, it's so important because here we go again. We're watching the DNC raking in all this money. And for me personally, it was hard to stomach, but I just looked and I went, oh my God, look at all of the independent media is now acting. And I don't want to pick on one candidate. It wouldn't matter if it was Mike Gravel or whoever, but Tulsi Gabbard. And I love her platform. I love everything she's had to say. I love that she stepped down from.
She's easy on the eyes, like Obama.
Right. And here we go again. And if she were running as an independent, I'd be your biggest cheerleader. But I'm just looking at this going, how is everyone falling for this again? You're giving money, and then all the indie media they're not practicing.
Well, I mean, as long as you know that the system is rigged and you donate because you want to get them an entry ticket, I think that's a little different.
Well, right. But I think
But I think they actually think that the system is, you know, like all it takes is for, who's the head of the DNC now, that Tom Perez guy.
Yes,
You know,
yeah.
they're like, baby, I'm sorry. I love you, baby. I won't, oh man, do you need some ice for that, baby? I won't do it again. And it's just like
Right.
years.
Yep.
And so a lot of people said, yeah, we want to have her on the debate stage. We want to get Mike Gravel on the debate stage. So they're willing to. So if you knowingly go into it that way, yes, that's different.
Yeah, it's just like, you know what? I'm going to buy you an entry ticket so you can go stir up some trouble. That's a little different, because I don't believe.
Right. Sure. But what I'm saying already, there are two pledges right now. This is the confusion that I'm witnessing on Twitter, and I've been tweeting out a lot trying to clear it up. But so there is a pledge that all candidates running as Democrat in the presidential primary had to sign this pledge. And you know what? I'll see if I can pull it up. I'm curious what you would think.
It's so nice. The DNC is so big on promises, aren't they?
Aren't they?
Yeah, but it's like the wording of it is, hang on, I'm going to find it while we're, but it's, okay, so there's the DNC.
Sell us your soul and fuck a child, and then we'll let you in our little club. Is that what it is?
No, not exactly worded that way. But all right, here we go. I think this is it. Yep, okay. So there isn't a copy of one that Tulsi signed, but we know that she signed it, as did Mike Gravel, as did all of them, because it's required. But I found on Document Cloud, it's Bernie's, and it says, further, I acknowledge that the national chairperson of the DNC is authorized to determine whether a presidential candidate has established substantial support for their nomination as the Democratic candidate for office of president is a bona fide Democrat whose record of public service, accomplishments, public writings, and or public statements affirmatively demonstrate that the candidate is faithful to the interests, welfare, and success of the Democratic Party.
Well, I'm faithful and interested in the welfare of my fucking party. It's going to shit.
Right. And will participate in the convention in good faith. So,
well, what about the voters who participated in good faith? Anyway,
right.
I don't even know why we're reading these papers, because it's very clear that whatever the paperwork the DNC spits out is not worth what the paper it's printed on.
Right.
You know, so yeah. I don't pay attention to what they write anymore, because it's like worthless.
Well, but there's an organization, Indivisible. Have you heard of that? So it's a Democratic, so there's another pledge that specifically says, I will support whoever the nominee is, and I will play nice, and like there won't really be real competition. I'll just, play along. And so Bernie signed that one, but Tulsi hasn't. So when I bring this up about this pledge online, people are like, she didn't sign a pledge. Bernie signed a pledge. And so it's
Who cares? Who cares? Why are we getting bogged down in the weeds? I think the most important thing are the promises that are made behind closed doors that are not shown to us.
Yeah, good point.
Who cares what these papers are?
Well, the only reason I bring them up is because I think that I feel like I'm seeing it myself on Twitter, on social media, that people are confused, and therefore they are doing what was done before. They're donating, thinking that one thing, when that's not really, they're being defrauded again.
Right.
People are so cute. They're just like my chickens. So I have 30 chickens. And, I feed them. Sometimes if the roosters get cocky, I spray them with a little bit of water. On shower, not on full blast, just to show them who's boss. And I butchered a chicken fairly recently. For the first time in my life, I caught one and I slit its throat and I let the blood drip out as it slowly thrashed itself to death. And I saw it die in front of me. And these poor chickens, I killed one of them, but they still follow me around. It's like, their heads are like this big. And it's just like, damn. You should be like, oh shit, she's killing us. But people are like, it's just, I don't know. I don't know what's fucking, I don't know what happened to our cognitive abilities as a country. I really think there's something environmental going on. You talk about our children being bombarded with various things that really impair their brain function. I think somebody said it's death by 1,000 cuts. A lot of things are going on that really, as a country, is really impairing our human resources. I was also reading an article that, okay, so BMI is the body mass index. You have underweight, normal, overweight, and then you have obese and morbidly obese. Forget about overweight.
Right.
Almost 40% of Americans are obese, and some 7-point-some% are morbidly obese. Okay. I am not anti-fat. I was quite fat as a child. It's not about looks. It's like a health issue.
Right.
As long as it doesn't impair your health, who that gives a shit? But this is a health issue. Why are the folks in this country in such poor, profoundly poor health? Okay? Obesity and morbid obesity is a really bad health issue.
Well, because that starts when you're very young.
Yeah, so what the hell is going on? We're obviously not protecting each other.
Right.
The processed food, the corn syrup and everything, the frankenfats as they call them, and all of that is not good for your brain either. We don't have the essential fatty acids. We have, the saturated.
It's been tied to the lack of breastfeeding in infancy, and but whoever those companies are that make the formula, they're making bucks.
Oh yeah.
So, but it's just, I don't know. I think part of the reason that we have so many problems is that we really don't have like a cohesive national identity. I was having a conversation about this today with someone, and I asked her, a journalist, what does it mean to be American? So what ties all Americans together? All right. So, and she said, well, it's like being a good person. So I'm like, okay, that sounds nice. But that's not an American trait, because are you telling me that Canadians don't try to be good people? You see what I'm saying? Like, what distinguishes Americans so that when you see another American, you're like, I feel a sense of kinship with you that I don't feel with somebody from Canada or Ethiopia or France or New Zealand? Like, what kind of kinship? And she's like, I don't know. Can you answer that, Kelly, Brian?
Putting profits above all else.
Yeah,
Well,
it seems to be pretty American.
So I said, please don't tell me it's shopping. Do not tell me that shopping is what binds us together. Okay? Because you have to have something if you want to survive as a country. You have to have something that binds us to each other as country people.
Well, I think there's a sense with that, putting profits above all else, and this is kind of Republican thinking, but I think it's more across the board with everyone. It's like,
I disagree. I don't think that's a Republican
quote, but every motherfucker for himself is basically it. It's I am capable on my own. I don't need. It's that pioneering, I guess.
But the thing is, like, I try to see, what you consider to be the Republican point of view, and I think at the heart, if it's not corrupted, it's basically self-sufficiency, thriftiness, hard work, and those are all very good things. And then on the Democratic side, Republicans always talk about how Democrats want to raise taxes and this and that. On the Democratic side, it's a social safety net, more of a collective approach, and these are all very good ideas on both sides. You know what I mean? And I don't want to. So I wasn't born in this country. I was born in Korea, but I grew up in this country, right, since the age of 3. The United States is the only country I have ever known. I didn't really even travel like I traveled throughout the United States when I was in my 20s, but I was like I was never one of those people who took like trips abroad or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But recently I got a chance to go back to the motherland. And so Korea, so I'm not trying to be all like pro Korea. I'm just trying to figure out like, how did this tiny ass country survive for 5,000 years, right? Because there are civilizations that are very old. And so if you look at Korea right now, Korea is doing really well economically. They have, you can't call them Democratic or Republican. They're very capitalist, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Like my phone is a Samsung phone. I see people drive Kia cars. They're clearly making shit and selling it. They're not communist.
Right.
On the other hand, they give like basic medical care to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like
Right.
a balance.
Yeah, I feel some. I mean, I come from Republicans on one side, Canadians on the other. I always tell this way that, you know, that like Canadians that like their socialized medicine. But I feel like, you know, a lot of times in the progressive circles that I run in, that becomes very anti-capitalism. And I don't really feel that way. I just feel like it's capitalism run amok at this point. Like we could have capitalism with regulations, but it's like all the you know, the wheels just came off. The rules just went away completely. And so maybe Korea, there's capitalism, but there are rules and regulations.
Oh, they're very heavily regulated. Now, the thing is, I do see the Republican point of view, which is like, do you trust this government to regulate us? And I have to say, actually, I don't. I think that it's whether or not we have socialized medicine is a policy question, but I think that's jumping the gun. We first have to have like a functional government before we can talk about policy, and we just don't have. I don't think we have a government that is ours anymore.
No.
Okay, when you have somebody like Hillary Clinton, and I'm not bashing on her, she's just a person.
Oh, it's
in the
fun.
system. But she was selling state secrets and doing uranium one and all this kind of stuff, and it's just like, just sell off your country's interests for a few shekels, basically.
Right.
And, you know, and it's not a democratic thing. I'm not bashing on Secretary Clinton.
That me, American, maybe.
And it's not related to party. I mean, like, what the fuck is going on with the Bush family?
Mm-hmm.
You know, 9/11 happened under their watch. What did they know? And after 9/11 happened, a lot of their cronies made a lot of money. Now, let me ask you, as a fellow American, how is it like not traitorous to allow, you know, 2 buildings full of Americans to collapse, and then you make a lot of money off of that?
Right. Insurance and stuff. That was, I think, oh, who was telling me this? Something about, I think it was Mitch, Brian, when he was here, saying something about these insurance policies that were taken out on buildings beforehand, or something like that. I don't know the details. So.
Oh yeah, I think there was some dude in California, some politician, who got a call saying something like, "Don't fly on this day," or "Don't stay away." I mean, like, people knew. Okay, obviously something was afoot, and there were people who knew that something was going to happen. So, you know, why are people doing that? And, you know, there's this phrase, you get the government that you deserve. And I'm like, people like to blame Congress for everything. But I'm thinking maybe our government is the way it is because they're just reflecting us.
Right.
That is a good point.
You know, the 80s were such a great decade. People still talk about the go-go 80s. But, you know, I grew up in Los Angeles in the inner city, and the 80s were very bad for the inner city. And there's been some talk that the reason the urban areas were decimated in the 80s was because our very own CIA was flooding them with crack cocaine and guns.
Gary Webb, is that his name? Gary Webb?
George Webb?
No. Oh,
is he?
The guy that ended up committing suicide. I think he worked for
LA
Times. And
yeah, I heard about him.
Writing about that. Is that his?
Right.
Gary, I can't remember his name. I thought it was.
No, somebody told me about him. But you know what? You know, that shit was going on in America, and other Americans were like, well, I really don't care because I got my Porsche And
Right.
frankly, I don't relate to those people because their skin is darker than mine.
Right.
And then Ronald Reagan, who a lot of people idolize, gave these speeches, and he was blowing dog whistles till he was red in the face, and people were like lapping it up, okay? Talking about welfare queens and all that crap, and people were like,
Mm-hmm.
So I like to think that whatever problems we have actually stems from the very misery in our own shriveled hearts, because nobody gave a shit, you know. And then now, and it's just like a very bad situation that kind of migrates. And now we have an opioid crisis, and I'm talking to a lot of people whose children they have addictions, and it's just a real big mess. And other chunks of Americans don't give a shit. I mean, I see videos where somebody's like having like a seizure on the street because they're overdosing, and there are people like videotaping it and laughing about it. Okay? And I'm like, well, this is America. We don't like each other. We hate each other.
Mm-hmm. Well, meanness, things like that will become viral. A video like that will become viral, and it's, I don't know, bullying.
Yeah, but it's just, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe, and you know, Americans, it's kind of like denial. We're a very nice people. I don't know if that's true. I think that there's a lot going on abroad that this country does. Like, we blow up children, we do all sorts of shit, and we have an ocean to our right and an ocean to our left, and we're like, I don't care.
Yeah, I think it's also because it's so big that it's, I guess, that
Yeah.
it's easy to sort of wall yourself off in your own bubble.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Your own, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if this country is long for the world, because maybe it's not long for this world because it's just too big and people just don't relate. I don't even know if they've ever related.
Right. But you have, like, you think of Nebraska and then, inner city LA, like you said. I mean, it's like two different countries, the way people live.
And they don't interact.
No, not at all. Right. So
and the other thing is, like, the media doesn't really help.
No.
The interaction,
they
actually create a lot of division.
I think they're banking on that. That's what keeps everything the way it is to
Right.
continue to push those differences. Well, have you thought about moving back to Korea? Is that?
Oh, so here's the thing. So this wasn't my idea. It was Jared's idea. And he just rants all the time. He's like, I fucking can't do this anymore. Man, you don't understand. I grew up being taught in America that is not true. I'm not going to have this on my conscience. And I'm like, what are you going to do about it? And so he's like, let's leave. And so when we moved into this house, I made my husband promise that we weren't going to move again. And now he's breaking that promise. But you know what? I just want a happy husband. So I looked into this. And even though I grew up in the United States, this is really weird. So one of the things I've learned is that different countries have different definitions of what it means to be a citizen of that country.
Right.
So in the United States, we're actually a very unique country, and I haven't decided whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, but in the United States, it's a matter of paperwork. You get your papers and now you're an American.
Mm-hmm.
Germany's not like that.
Right.
And the thing about countries like Korea, they're very racist. I'm not gonna lie, okay? They're racist against everyone except Koreans.
Mm-hmm.
And even with Koreans. So the thing with Korea is that it's based on bloodlines. So even though I'm an American citizen, apparently I'm in a special category of people because I'm pure-blooded Korean. I can actually have an abbreviated immigration thing going on over there.
Well, you were born there, right?
Yeah, I was, but I'm like, so what? I mean, like, you can be born in the United States, but if you go to another country and you become a citizen of that country, it's not like America says, bloodlines. Are you a daughter of the American Revolution?
Right.
You're welcome back anytime. We don't do that.
Right. True.
So I'm like, what? You want to go to Korea? And he's like, I want you to get your paperwork ready because you know, from Jared's point of view, you know, he's always kind of, I don't think he's prone to denial. He may be prone to fits of like moroseness, but he's not denial. So
No, you guys don't seem like that.
he doesn't want it on his conscience, you know? He doesn't want to be part of an evil empire.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to get my paperwork ready. I really don't want to move because I have fish. But you know, I'm a cold-hearted bitch, man. If we have to get our fucking family out, I'll flush my fish down the toilet.
Well, so Jared wouldn't be very welcomed then in Korea. Is that what
They're
you're
going to see him as like some weirdo foreigner, but you know, so the good thing is I speak the language.
Oh,
Okay.
Speak the language. Oh my God, they would really look down on me. But I speak the language because my mother has an inability to learn English. She really did try. She watched a lot of Wheel of Fortune, but it really didn't help much.
I have a friend who's from Russia because I'm a Russian bot, and
Oh.
that's all I have is Russian.
I'm sorry, I only know one Russian word and it's bad, so I won't repeat it here.
Oh, actually, I don't really know any. I mean, I love hearing her talk on the phone, like to her parents or in-laws.
Yeah.
I can't repeat any of it. But she came over here at the age of, I think, 22 or 23.
Okay.
She didn't know English, and she learned from watching television.
Okay.
She was actually she was sick at the time and had a baby and was stuck at home. And so for like 3 or 4 years, all she did was watch TV. But her English is amazing. Now she says her writing it isn't good, but her speaking, I mean, she has a very thick accent, which I think sounds really cool. But she speaks perfect English, really. So
Yeah.
it's amazing. From at the age of 22, I mean, that's pretty late to learn it.
She sounds like a really smart cookie.
Yeah, she is.
You know, language facility. But I picked up Korean because my mother only spoke to me in Korean growing up. And she never stopped talking either. So my gosh, she was a motor mouth. So I picked it up from her. So now it's kind of coming into play. So I'm going to go over there and I'm going to bang on their fucking doors and I'm going to be like, let me in. I'm Korean, damn it.
Well, at least you have the option. I mean, that's how I feel about Canada, but it's just too damn cold. So I haven't left. So
Yeah, I'm only doing it because Jared is like, it fits all the time.
Right.
It's his idea, not mine.
Well, you could go for a while and maybe America will magically, get better once we, I don't know, elect the right person, right?
No, we lost our country.
It sure seems that way.
Yeah, it does seem that way.
But, Brian and I both, I don't know how we even sort of fell into doing this, but
I'm sorry.
Work with, oh no, it's fine. I get pessimistic too. But we met a lot of really great candidates over the past year that are all like independent grassroots candidates that really genuinely give a shit about the country. And they all are saying the same things of how to fix things and what the problems are. And it's like, you can see it. Like if you could just get these people into office, it's right there. But I don't know if it's going to happen because of our election system. But anyway, I said I was going to be in this till 2020, so I guess I'll keep trying.
I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade. We all have to do what we need to do so that when we're on our deathbed, our consciences are clear.
Right.
And that's different for different people. Somebody I talked to today, so I was talking to somebody and he's like an American, but he was rooting around and he found some like Italian heritage in his life, and he actually got an Italian dual citizenship.
Oh,
cool. And I'm like, and he's not like, it's not like he's like Italian, you know what I mean? I mean, he is, but he grew up here. Parents grew up here. It's kind of weird, but today I was talking to someone who, this is it for her. She has no plan B.
Right.
I mean, this country has been good to me. I mean, I don't know if leaving is the right thing, but on the other hand,
Having the option is nice, I think.
what's that?
Having the option is nice, I think.
Well, I mean, this country has been good to me, but I just don't want to sit here and hunker and just like, and I don't want to go. It'll be very traumatic, but I don't want to sit here and just like have my comfortable little life while, you know, things are going to shit around me.
Right. And I think when you get down in it very closely, like I know you said it was just one of many cases, but obviously, you know, you got some at least independent media attention on it and you were invested in it. I mean, I know I came back from Florida. I was down there with Tim Canova's campaign in this election integrity group and getting
Tim Canova, good old Tim Canova. He's so intense, isn't he? Intense?
He can be, yes.
But you know, being right,
vegan, he's like,
being right in it though, and seeing how much everybody worked, and then to see it all just the rug pulled out from under that. You know, we don't really know what happened as far as the real numbers, but it was very disheartening, and I felt kind of like, wow, this is just too big. How do you possibly tackle it? You know, we're talking about voting machines that we don't even know how they're working, and so I came back from Florida, and for about 3 months, I just really couldn't get in the mood at all to do any of this work. But I don't know, I found a little bit more interest in sort of branching out and doing some other stuff around it. But so we'll keep trying.
Yeah, I read about, you know, India, the colonization of India by Britain. So when your country is, because our country is sort of up for sale, you know, we don't have any sense of sovereignty. It's like anybody can buy a chunk of this country and buy influence. So you look at India, and India was a very vibrant country, but they had a lot of problems, which was exploited by the East India Company of Britain. And they went into a state of colonization. And Britain sucked India dry. Because I was reading about this, I didn't know this. When Britain took over India, India was actually very wealthy.
Yes, it was. Yep. Very profitable.
They didn't take over like a shithole. It was culturally very rich, and it was also, they had a lot of stuff like spices, and it was filled with like wealthy sultans or whatever you call it. And then Britain took over. A tiny ass country like across the ocean took over India. Okay.
Oh, there's a novel. I can't think of the name of it
it's
right
incredible,
now.
Actually. And those fucking Indian rulers, you know. But now India is free, and they're finally starting to recover from that period of colonialism.
Do you remember a novel? There's a story. I read it in college, and I cannot remember the name of it now.
The Jungle Book?
No, that's not it. But it's something it's about India, and it's a story.
A Passage to India?
I don't know.
Was it a fiction novel?
No, well, yeah, it was fiction, but it was based on, you know, what really happened during that time period, and I cannot think of the name of it. Saved my life now. But anyway, yeah, you do wonder, like, how is it that white Europeans just have done this to like every country?
Well, I don't even see it as a racial issue, because you have to go really back in history. So if you go really back in history, you see that the Chinese had colonized Korea. You see that the Mongols, like, basically pillaged the Eastern Europe. It's really not like a white European thing. I think it's just things go up and things go down. I think colonialism is just really old as the hills. And then if you go into like the Old Testament, you see how like Egypt, which is in Africa, basically was really enslaving people left and right. And so it's really not a racial thing.
Right. Well, more recently.
Yeah. So recently it's the age of there was a heyday of the West, which I think lasted for like, I don't know, like 500 years maybe.
Well, I think Chris.
And it's kind of, I don't know, we're in a transition period.
Well, as Chris Hedges often writes about, late stage capitalism and the corporate state and kind of what's happening now, that it is I guess, in the process of failing. Who's the other economist? Wolf, I think his name is.
Richard Wolf, yeah.
Yes.
He talks about that a lot.
Yeah, says the same thing. So, but if you're personally not hurting, like you said, if someone's like, oh, my stocks went up, that you just don't care. You just wall yourself off from it, till it's happening to you.
Well, you have to, well, that's a very bad recipe for sovereignty as a country, because you have to have some sort of cohesion. So, so you look at the family unit, all right? Mm-hmm. So you have take the typical, TV family, mom, dad, kids, dog, all right? Or chickens, but they're like pets. They're like livestock. But there's a cohesion there, right? Mm-hmm. So if dad is sick, mom makes chicken soup, okay? If mom's not, on Mother's Day, the kids make mom a card. Like, it's a unit and they sort of help each other. So if you expand that as a country, there still has to be something like that mm-hmm. going on. And I saw on Twitter some article, I can't remember which newspaper it was, but they were talking about how this lady was very demoralized because her daughters, either she told her daughters not to go into engineering, or they went into engineering and they couldn't find jobs because they were getting priced out by all these engineers from India who are willing to work for a lot less. And she's like, oh my God, this isn't right. But I was thinking, of course, this is going to be a natural reaction because we've decimated so many domestic industries because we want cheap shit.
Right.
Okay. So, every Christmas, people go to Walmart and they buy a bunch of fucking tchotchkes. Yeah. And it makes them happy. But how is that any different from Indian engineers coming over? True. It's the same thing. They're selling a skill. And so you can't, when coal was disappearing, we have no industry in the United States. Mm-hmm. We really don't. We don't protect it anymore.
Hollywood movies,
yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Right. Well, so do you know when do you think something will come out about the appeal?
Oh, I have no idea. They do what they want. They have lifetime tenure. You can't fire them.
Right.
They do whatever the hell they want. I have federal cases where it's I think in one case it's getting on 2 years with no order.
Wow. Okay.
Some people are like, what can you do about it? You're like, nothing.
Is there anywhere that we can look up some information about about it?
You can look at the documents that have been filed in the lower court and the appeal mm-hmm. at www.jampec. That's JAPAC.us/DNC lawsuit. I still keep that website up.
Okay. Yeah, I do remember. I think it was in December. I looked at some of that, and there was some audio from the courtroom there too. Yeah. Okay, that'll have stuff about the appeal, though.
Yeah, it'll have all the court file documents, and in terms of when we will get a ruling, your guess is as good as mine.
I wonder if
I'm taking bets.
There's no public pressure now, though, right? Because everybody's just moved on. So I wonder if there were any public pressure on. I mean, do you know who the judge will be there? What did you say about?
Oh no, we had a panel. I can't remember the 3-judge panel, but it's a 3-judge panel. Mm-hmm. I can't remember their names.
And was that the one where one of the female judges recused?
So that was so weird. So we first got a 3-judge panel, and then one of the judges, not immediately, but kind of into it, recused herself. And I'm like, well, who is she? And so I called the clerk, I just want to know, so who's the judge that recused herself? Obviously, she was a judge on this case. I'd like to know his or her name. And the clerk was very nice, and the clerk said, I can't tell you that. And I'm like, what?
Okay.
I'm like, why not? And she's like, hold on. And I'm like, can you show me the rule that says that I'm not entitled to know who the judge is on an appeal? And she's like, hold on. And she goes and she says, I'm sorry, I really can't tell you that. I'm like, who says who? She's like, says the judge who recused herself. I'm like, you went and asked her?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So they can just say they want to remain
Anonymous. So I'm like, okay, back up. So I said, back up. Forget about it. Forget about me asking you who the judge was who recused herself.
Mm-hmm.
Who was the judge? Can you tell me who the judges were assigned on this date? That's like a totally different question, but the same answer.
Right.
And she's like, oh, you asked the right question. And she told me. I'm like, thank you.
Okay. So you figured out.
It was so weird. I had never encountered anything so weird. That was such a weird call to the clerk. And so I'm like looking up this judge. I don't know why she recused herself. The thing about recusals is you never know why they recuse themselves. They're not obligated to tell you.
Right.
It could be like, you know what? I became a Democrat. I just decided I was going to register as a Democrat, so no, I can't do this case. Oh, you know, I got a call from a good friend of mine, and she's going to run for office. Who knows? I'm just completely speculating.
Right.
I don't like doing this case anymore. You just never know why they recuse themselves.
Right.
You know?
Probably. Well, who knows? Maybe it wasn't.
No, it's just a pure speculation. I'm not going to. I don't know. So anyway, so she recused herself. Then it got booted to another oral argument date, and then we finally got our 3-judge panel.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I wish I can remember their names. I'm so bad with names. But anyway, so we had oral argument, and that was it. And I like to tell people, when a case is dismissed and it's on appeal, it's like on life support.
Okay. So when was the oral argument? When did that happen?
I can't remember. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I want to say it's like last year.
Okay. Yeah, I saw. Well, it was dismissed. Was that December? Like the end of December? Oh well,
I have to. I can pull up the docket, but
yeah. Well, I hear you that it's probably nothing's going to happen with it, but I'd like to stay following it. And it seems to me like if there was a little bit more attention on it, maybe, I don't know, maybe it could have a different outcome if there was some public pressure, but maybe nobody's going to pay attention now.
I have somewhat of a very dim view about the integrity of our legal system. And that's one of the reasons why Jared rants and talks about leaving the country, because once you know and you suspect that the integrity of the judiciary is severely compromised, you have to really wonder what is it that you bring to the table.
Yeah.
Lawyering doesn't mean shit.
Yeah, at some point you have to stop beating your head up against the wall. It's just, like you said, exercise in futility. So I hear you. But I still say thank you to both of you for everything.
Oh, you're welcome.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
it matters. I know that it matters to people like us that really paid attention. And, you might not have gotten all that feedback, but, and I did get the book, and I haven't had time to read it yet, but I'm going to. So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I know. I had to buy it on Amazon, but I don't know. Okay. The evil Amazon. But, yeah, I will read it and then I'll know more. But okay, so it's stuff about the court, but also what happened during the 2016 primary, I guess. Well, I'll find out. I will read it and I'll stay on it. And, I'd like to at least know what happens with the appeal and when and what. Do they have to give reasons, right? If they. Yeah,
it would be a written opinion.
Mm-hmm. So I wonder if it'll be just the same stuff they said at the dismissal. But.
Okay, I'll be there in a second, honey.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Yes.
Yeah, I really wish I didn't have to flush my fish down the toilet. I hope it doesn't come to that, but I'll do it.
Did the little one?
Oh, no, maybe I'll give them away. You guys want some dojo loaches?
What are they?
Loaches, they're like my favorite fish because they're bottom feeders and I'm a lawyer. Ha ha They're so cute.
Can't you take them in
They
a
have these
little...
barbells. They look like they have these barbells. They're like,
Oh, okay. Well, can't you take them in a little baggie?
are you kidding? Somebody tried to take a beta fish on an airplane and said it was like a support animal. I read an article, and they're
Oh,
like,
that's funny.
no, you know what they said? The TSA people were like, that's in liquid. We're gonna dump it. But she had to board her plane without her beta fish. I'm like, you cannot take a beta fish on a plane. It's in liquid. You're not gonna.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm sure
her support animal. Oh my God, so sad, right?
there's got to be someone. I met a lot of people when I was down there. I love Miami. I'm sure you'll find someone if you do leave that will take you.
305.
So I'm sure we'll find someone to take them. I'm in North Carolina, so.
To the ocean happy. Oh.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, and I'm going to stay on top of this. So,
You're welcome.
yeah, thank you. Okay, great to meet you.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Thanks a lot.